What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today we're taking a look at the new Dragapult VMAX card from Rebel Clash, and I do think this card is one of the best cards in the set, and I think that a Dragapult VMAX deck will be one of the top decks in Ultra Prism through Rebel Clash format. So I wanted to get a deck profile up on the channel for this quickly. There's a lot of decks I want to start building in Rebel Clash, and I'd also like to hear what you want to see me play and build on the channel. So let me know in the comments down below. If by the time you're watching this I have not gotten to a deck you would like to see, make sure you let me know. But today we will be looking at Dragapult VMAX and the current deck list I have for it, which was inspired by Takuya Yoneda's Dragapult VMAX list. I actually put this list up on my Patreon about 5 days prior to this video going public, so if you'd like to join my Patreon and get benefits like early deck lists and premium articles and even coaching up at the higher tiers when spots open for that, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Celio's Network to learn about the benefits and consider joining. I'd also like to shout out my sponsor, PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes, and make sure you use code CELIO for 5% off. Last thing I want to say before we get into this is I did recently become an affiliate with TCG Player, and if you're already buying supplies and cards from that site and you'd like to help support the channel in the meantime, you can use the code in the link in the description below, and if you click that link and it leads to you buying something on TCG Player, I get a small commission. So it's your way to kind of help support the channel if you're enjoying the content and if you were already buying stuff at TCG Player. So it helps me out and I really appreciate it. But let's start looking at this Dragapult VMAX list, and we'll start with Dragapult V and Dragapult VMAX since the deck really is just solely built around this one line of Pokemon. So we've got the 4 Dragapult V, 210 HP Psychic type. Typing is very important because it means we can use Horror Energy, we can use Mysterious Treasure, and we can use Spell Tag if we wanted to, but we're not using Spell Tag. Maybe I'll get into that later when we get to Giant Bomb, but we're using a different kind of tool. So it has 2 attacks, Bite, Psychic Energy to do 30. That's decent for early poke damage if you go second and you want to attack into something. And then you have Jet Assault, Psychic to do 60 damage. And then if this Pokemon moved from your bench to the active spot this turn, this attack does 80 more damage. So Jet Assault's actually not too bad for being on a V Pokemon that has a VMAX form. Usually you'll notice the V Pokemon that have a VMAX form are a little bit weaker than the V Pokemon that do not have a VMAX form. But 2 energy to do 140 is pretty okay. And now we're moving on to the head honcho dragon with the little dragon boys in the ears himself, Dragapult VMAX. This card is honestly so cool looking. I was lucky enough to pull some of the Rainbows locked version, and I have one unlocked regular art, but awesome art. And luckily, it's also a very, very strong card. So Dragapult VMAX is coming in at 320 HP. Of course, your opponent takes 3 prizes for knocking this out instead of 2. And it has 2 attacks, which is nice to see on VMAX Pokemon. So it has the first one, Shred, for Psychic Energy. It does 60 damage, and this attack's damage is not affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So this goes through something like Zamazenta V's ability that stops damage from VMAX Pokemon's attacks. You could still get through a little bit of chip damage with Shred doing 60. Shred's also okay, like if your opponent's disrupting your energy or you whiffed an energy attachment or something like that, so you can't use Max Phantom, well, you can still Shred for 60. And we don't want to do it, but it's the best you can get sometimes, so at least it does have a 1 energy attack on it. And then the main attack on the card, the main attack of this deck is Max Phantom, 2 energy to do 130, and then you put 5 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon in any way you like. Now, this may seem a bit underwhelming, but the way this deck supports it and the HP that this Pokemon has, so you can use this attack time and time again, especially if you're healing, the psychic support, this attack is so strong when the deck is built correctly, and maybe even in a vacuum it will seem strong to some of you, but I could definitely see somebody saying like 130 for 2 energy, like that doesn't, we've seen that, like, right? But it's very, very good. So let's talk about why it's good on this card, and then we'll get into the other cards in the deck and talk about how the deck complements it. But 130 for 2 energy on a 320 HP Pokemon, so this is probably not getting one-shotted. we're doing damage that will 2-shot some things, 3-shot others, but we can buff that. So let's say we're usually 2-shotting or 1-shotting a single prize Pokemon. And then we have 5 damage counters to put on the bench Pokemon in any way you like. 5 damage counters can go 3 on one Jirachi, 2 on another, 5 all on one Jirachi, maybe 3 on a Dedenne. So next turn we bosses order the Dedenne up and Max Phantom it. So already you should see the dots kind of connecting, that Dedenne and Jirachi are used a lot as support Pokemon in the meta, and Max Phantom can hit whatever's in the active and then start setting up knockouts on the other Pokemon as well. Against single prize Pokemon, we can hit into a single prize Pokemon, probably knock it out, damage something else, another single prize Pokemon comes out, hits us, we knock that out, damage the other one, knocking it out. Maybe taking 3 prizes and 2 attacks that way as well. Just a couple different ways that Max Phantom can work in different scenarios, but I'm sure you can think of some ways on your own. But just the versatility of being able to put 5 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon however you like with this attack is really nice. So effectively you're doing 180 damage of value for 2 energy, but you get to put 130 on the active and then allocate that 5 any way you like on the bench. And that can be really, really important, that they can go however you want them to. So we are playing a 4-3 line of that. In Takuya's list, he played a 4-4 line. I have taken out the 4th one because it hasn't felt needed. I did like it for consistency, but since this deck can play 4 Mysterious Treasure and 4 Quick Ball, and this deck has been wildly consistent for me both in IRL and PTCGO testing, I felt like a 4th Dragapult might be an okay cut, and it has seemed good for some of the cards that I wanted to add to the deck. So let's talk about how this deck exactly complements Max Phantom. So the 130 and put 5 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon. So we are definitely going to like to make that 5 damage counters go as long as it can. So, or for as much value as we can. So if we can knock something out immediately with those 5 damage counters, that's probably better, because it doesn't allow your opponent to scoop up net it or super scoop up or Mallow Lana or whatever the damage counters away. So we do have Galarian Zigzagoon with Headbutt Tantrum. When you put this Pokemon onto your bench during your turn, you may put 1 damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Just a little while ago, I was playing on the Versus ladder versus Toxtricity VMAX. They benched a Trubbish, and on my turn 2, I searched out Headbutt Tantrum, put a damage counter on their Trubbish, and then I used Max Phantom 130, put 5 on the Trubbish, and the Trubbish was knocked out immediately. So without the Galarian Zigzagoon, maybe I would have put 5 there, and then it would have evolved into a Garbodor, and then it would have been harder to knock out. So using setting up damage so you can get the Pokemon knocked out as soon as you can is sometimes what you want, but other times you want to set up knockouts for later on. So the deck gives you a lot of room to show off your skill a little bit. Whenever you're getting to choose damage counters where you're placing them, especially all 5 of them, you get to place however you like. I think this deck definitely allows you to show off your skill. And like I gave the example of here, you can choose to accelerate the damage and make it knock out something immediately, or you can choose to save that damage for later and try to take multiple knockouts at once. There's plenty of reasons for both, so you have to kind of evaluate the situation you're in and take it from there, which is why I really like Dragapult VMAX as a deck. I felt like most games don't go the same way twice. So that's Galarian Zigzagoon, and of course we're playing for Scoop Up Net. This deck really benefits from Scoop Up Net the way that it's built. And Scoop Up Net is a new item card from Rebel Clash. Put one of your Pokemon that isn't a V or GX into your hand, discard all cards attached to it. Just wanted to touch on some of the other things real quick before we get into the entire deck on Max Phantom's synergy with the deck, but wanted to intervene there with Scoop Up Net since it does work with Zigzagoon. So if your opponent had a 70 HP Pokemon, maybe you could use Zigzagoon, Scoop Up Net it, then Max Phantom. Just saying we don't cap at like 6 damage counters in a turn. Other things that make the Max Phantom work really well are the Horror Energy, which is also new in Rebel Clash, and another great card that I really love out of this set. So it's a special Psychic Energy. I love getting new special energies that we can use in meta decks. It provides a Psychic Energy, and if the Psychic Pokemon this card is attached to is damaged by an opponent's attack, it's in the active spot and damaged by an opponent's attack, put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. There are definitely times where I have 2 Horror Energy on my Dragapult VMAX, and if the opponent swings into it, they take 4 damage counters. If they got hit by Max Phantom last turn, they already had 130 on them, now they're at 170. Now I hit them again with Max Phantom and they're at 300. That's actually knocking out a lot of stuff, and even if it doesn't, you could clean it up with a couple Galarian Zigzagoon abilities. If they swing into you again with Horror Energy, they might even knock themselves out. So the Horror Energy is such a great card, and just another thing that's pushing Dragapult into its relevance and its power. And then another one is the Giant Bomb. I said I would touch on why I'm not playing Spell Tag in the deck. Well, we're playing Giant Bomb in Spell Tag's place. So if this card is attached to one of your Pokemon, discard it at the end of your opponent's turn. And it is a Pokemon tool. So the tool's effect is if the Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon and takes 180 or more damage from an opponent's attack, put 10 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. 10 damage counters. That's a lot of damage. That's almost as much damage as our Max Phantom attack is doing in the first place. So this is really great to kind of make up for the damage that Max Phantom isn't doing to the active Pokemon, and it synergizes well here because we are using a 320 HP Pokemon as our main attacker. So not a lot of things are one-shotting us, but a lot of things might be trying to two-shot us or failing at one-shotting us, so Giant Bomb's effect will go off. So kind of the damage spread and the damage modifiers of the deck would be the Dragapult VMAX attack itself, the Galarian Zigzagoon, the Giant Bombs, and the Horror Energy. We're not playing Spell Tag because Spell Tag the Pokemon has to be knocked out for. And realistically, your opponent's knocking out one Dragapult VMAX, and if they knock out the second, then they've won the game. With Giant Bomb, you could attach a Giant Bomb, they hit into you, then the Giant Bomb goes off. You can heal with Mallow Lana, attach another Giant Bomb, the Giant Bomb goes off. Like, that's extremely realistic. Or even you can get 2 Giant Bombs off in the life of one Dragapult VMAX, whereas Spell Tag the Pokemon has to be knocked out. So I think Giant Bomb is very, very good. I think it's definitely the tool to use with Dragapult VMAX. If you are playing a Malamar variant, I should say I think it's the tool to use in this variant of Dragapult VMAX. If you're playing Dragapult VMAX with other attackers like Giratina with Distortion Door, then maybe you should use Spell Tag if you're going to be attacking with single prize Psychic Pokemon. But in this variant, Giant Bomb, I definitely think is the way to go. Now, another change I made from Takuya's list is I've added 2 Mallow Lanas in place of the Team Yell Grunts. So what I've realized is disrupting my opponent's energy with Team Yell Grunt was kind of a win more for me, and especially because I wasn't getting it consistently enough, it wasn't doing enough for me in testing. Now, there were games where either in Mirror or a match that they were trying to two-shot me, build up damage over time. Mallow and Lana is a card that I wanted, so I've added 2 Mallow and Lana. Mallow Lana, if you don't know, switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. When you play this card, you may discard 2 other cards from your hand. If you do, heal 120 damage from the Pokemon you move to your bench. So you switch the Pokemon and heal 120, and 120 can be a considerable amount of damage depending on the situation, depending on the matchup. But this has proven to be valuable to me in testing, and it continues to work in testing so far. So I like it, but this is definitely what I would say is a preference choice for the deck. If you personally believe Team Yell Grunt's going to get you more value and you test it and it does, then by all means play Team Yell Grunt if that's what's working for you. But Mallow and Lana is what I prefer at the moment for the deck. And then another card I've added, since we're not using Team Yell Grunt, I'm actually using a different energy disruption, which has been overlooked for a while, and it probably wasn't that great up until now, but the pieces are finally coming together. And Giratina from Unified Minds with the Dimension Breach ability. So when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. This is coincidentally great for the mirror match, so if they attach Horror Energy, you can go Dimension Breach. If they have 2 Horror Energy, you can go Dimension Breach, Scoop Up Net, Dimension Breach, boom, they've got no energy left. So it could really punish the opponent for actually drawing into the special energy that they wanted in the first place. So I think Giratina is really great. Of course, it's useful in other scenarios. Plenty of decks play Aurora Energy. All of the Lightning decks are going to be playing Speed Lightning Energy, so you can pop an extra energy off in that matchup or in the various Lightning matchups that there may be in the meta. So Giratina, I definitely think he will prove his worth in this deck. I'm not going to go through the entire deck because I'm sure you've already seen some type of iteration of Dragapult VMAX, and like I said, I've explained why it works and how this variant works and how I want it to work, basically, with the cards I've added, the Mallow and Lana, the Giratina, and the next inclusion that's unique in my list is the Energy Spinner. So in testing, I found I was losing games if I whiffed an energy or if an energy was disrupted from me, like Crushing Hammer or Yell Grunt or something of the like. Now, not every deck, or probably not even most decks, run a Yell Grunt or a Crushing Hammer at the moment. And the answer to energy disruption would probably be running a Malamar line, a 1-1 or a 2-2, or dare I even say a 3-3, but probably a 2-2 line of Malamar, and that's just not the variant of Dragapult VMAX I want to use at the moment. So at the moment, I'll take where I fall off a little bit against the energy disruption, but I wanted to fix my problem with whiffing an energy when I don't draw into an energy and it's an internal problem. So my solution for that, to make this deck more consistent at getting the energy, is Energy Spinner. I guess you could consider a Guzma because it would grab you your Giant Bomb and your Horror Energy. But I think Guzma is too slow and it gets rid of too many resources in your hand for not enough effect, in my opinion. You could just play a Professor's Research and draw into an energy. So Energy Spinner's here because you can get it with Jirachi, whereas you cannot get an energy itself with Jirachi. So I have Energy Spinner in here over a natural energy because it's searchable by Jirachi, or pseudo-searchable by Jirachi, since Jirachi isn't technically a search. Let me see if there's anything else I really want to cover here. Overall, I think this deck is just very strong, very versatile. Like I said, I think it lets you show off your skill a lot with Max Phantom. The last thing I'll say here is I really have been enjoying what I'm calling the Takuya engine, because this kind of engine was popularized in Takuya's Dragapult list, which is the Guru, the Mewtwo, the Scoop Up Nets, and then things that complement Scoop Up Nets, basically. So because of the Primate Wisdom, you can switch a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. Well, if you play Mind Report and put a supporter card from discard on top of your deck, you can get that card with Primate Wisdom. If Mewtwo's on your bench because you've used it already, you can use Scoop Up Net to redo it and for the next turn, and then Primate Wisdom another supporter. So I think that's really nice, and Boss's Order is such a strong card, and I think 2 Boss's Order is kind of the minimum you would play in most decks, most typical decks at least, I'll say. And I would like an Eldegoss in this deck, but wait, I have Primate Wisdom and I have Mind Report with Scoop Up Nets, and now I don't have to have an extra 2-prize Pokemon on my bench, or even an extra bad starter in my deck. So I really like the Scoop Up Net Mewtwo Oranguru thing, especially since I want to be using Scoop Up Nets on my Galarian Zigzagoon and my Giratina, and Scoop Up Net can even get a lone Jirachi out of the active, or a stuck Jirachi, I should say, out of the active, if I don't have Escape Board or Switch. So this deck just runs really well. It runs really smooth. One thing I guess you could consider is maybe an Ordinary Rod over the Energy Spinner. If you are concerned about only having 3 Dragapult VMAX in the deck, or if you have to discard like some of your single prize techs early on in the game and you want to shuffle them back later, or they get knocked out. Or you could just add a 4th Dragapult VMAX if that's what you want. But this is the list that's been working for me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you today. So I hope that you all enjoyed this deck profile. And like I said in the beginning, let me know what kind of decks and what kind of gameplay you want to see for Rebel Clash on the channel. Be sure to follow me on Twitch. The link is in the description down below. I've been streaming a lot of PTCGO, and I'm going to be streaming a lot of PTCGO. So you can also follow me on Twitter to see when I'm going live, and sometimes I'll make stream schedules for the week and tweet them out. So definitely something there to check out. But subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. As always, shout out to PotownStore.com, my lovely sponsors. Use code CELIO for 5% off there, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.